the name of the topic is Pensions Demystified. If anybody needs to call me at any time, my number is on the slides, and I'll share it with you afterwards. Yes, I'll share it with you afterwards, no problem. Okay, so yes, so what is a pension? Actually, I wanted to actually throw this question, if you guys feel like good giving it a shot. When you hear the word pension, what do you think it means? You'd be surprised how many people ask that question to, and they really don't understand exactly what pension means. What is the point? What is a pension? Does anybody want to give a stab at it, or should I do it?
You want me to give a stab at it?
Yeah, go for it.
It's basically, I don't know, it's a fund. You know, you put money into the fund, or that's the idea, I think, and then over the course, the lifetime of an employee's employment into the fund, sometimes it's matched, sometimes it's not, depends on the compensation model.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, you know, when you're finished, those monies are then paid out in some allocation to support the individual in his retirement years.
Okay. So what would you say would be the difference you say between this and this is just a regular savings account is the fact that the employer is contributing, or do you think there's something else to it besides that?
Well, the employer and government organizations usually contribute towards the pension as well.
Okay. Okay.
That's my traditional knowledge of it.
Okay. That's what you're saying is true. There's one more point though, which is important to understand. Does anybody know does anybody? Maybe I'll give a stab and try to explain what the additional point is. The additional point is that it's a type of insurance that insures us for what's called long life. Okay, it insures us for long life. Okay, so insurance. When we think of insurance, we think of, oh, we're going to insure ourselves for catastrophes. Well, long life is not a catastrophe, but we need to be insured for it as well. Because what happens if we live long and our savings runs out on us? Okay. So one of the things regarding pension, and you're right what you said, it's paid by the employer and it helps in retirement, but it also, what it is it's a fund which if you live long, then the insurance company is covering you for that long life and giving you money for the rest of your life. Okay? So I don't know if not sure it's not always like that in the United States. And even in Israel, there's an asterisk next to that. So we'll explain a little bit of that asterisk, but besides that point. But it's very important to understand that that is what we're trying to get out of pension, is we're trying to protect us from long life. So in case a person lives has a short pension, the insurance companies, whoever it is, are giving you your pensions, they win. Okay, if you have a long life, they lose. And if you hit like the average, it's basically you get what you put into it. That's basically the purpose of it. And when you think of a pension, so basically you see we have a man here and he's like all confused and the woman's like kind of smiling afterwards. I'll tell you what it is. I'll try to explain what it is. The man is trying to figure out what his pension is. And he gets a really clear answer. X equals Y divided by Z, that's his pension. It's very easy, okay? For the woman afterward, it's obviously complicated. For the woman afterwards, what's left, or maybe it's not the woman, it's the spouse, okay? It's the second spouse, secondary. It's usually the woman, but it could be the other way around. Gets a percentage of what the man gets after he passes away. But let's first start with the man. What is this X equals Y divided by Z? Because that is the essence, the core of the pension, and it needs to be understood. Okay? X is the amount of money that you'll get per month for retirement. So today, for example, the average Israeli in his pension plan itself, not including savings or apartments they rent or whatever, gets something in the order of 5,000 shekels a month pension. That's the average today. Okay? Not very high per person. Okay? So this X is the final number. And how is this number computed? It's Y divided by Z. Y is the number of savings the person amassed. What you said, Evan, is true. The amount of money the person put into it, the amount of money the employer contributed into it. Okay, the government doesn't really contribute. They do provide some kind of subsidy, which we'll see later. All of that money gets amassed into a certain Y, into a certain number. It could be 1 million shekels. It could be 2 million shekels. It could be 3 million shekels amount of money. And that's divided by Z. And Z is a really important number. It's called the mikadem, the coefficient. Okay, and what it basically means is it's the actuary figure which figures out how many months the average person is going to live from the time he retires. Okay, so this number is how many months a person will live from the time he retires. So today, for example, Z for Americans and Z for the rest of the world, is actually around 200, a little more than 200. Okay, which means the expectation is that a person, if he retires at 67, will live for around 200 months. That's the average which is used right now. Maybe a little more than 200. So what that means actually is, if a person, okay, saves up 1 million shekels for the course of his life, and if the coefficient is 200, that means he will get that 5,000 shekels a month that we talked about. If, though, he saves up 2 million shekels during the course of his life, and the coefficient is 200, he will get 1,000 shekels a month for his life, okay? And if, however, people start living longer from retirement, and until Corona days, I think for sure the average age was going up quite significantly. It's like 1 extra year every 5 years, and we're seeing an increase in life expectancy of people who retire, especially. So what happens is this coefficient goes up. So if a person, let's say he saved up 1 million shekels, but the coefficient goes up to 250, he'll only get 4,000 shekels. Okay? So it's the amount of savings divided by the life expectancy. And what happens is so this coefficient, the question is, when is it decided? Okay, that's the big question, when is it decided? We would like for the coefficient to be decided when we're young, okay? Because then we're protected. So when I talk about insurance for long life, we would like to get that insurance when we're 30. So someone will tell us that when we're 30 already, okay, you're protected for the rest of your life, and you're protected for the rest of your life, and this is your coefficient, and it's signed and sealed, okay? Some people have deals like that. People who have old plans have those kinds of deals, but they've done away with them. In fact, they've done away with them in most of the Western world. Today, those coefficients are decided only much later on, okay? At least 60, past the age of, till the age of retirement, that coefficient is decided. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is a certain protection, but the protection is to protect you. It doesn't protect you when you're 30. When you're 30, you won't know, okay? If you're 30 and you've already gathered $1 million shekels, you still don't know how much you're going to get every month when you retire, because the coefficient will go up by the time it will definitely change by the time you're 60, 65, 67, whenever it is you retire. But the closer you get to retirement age, the closer you are to being sure about what your coefficient will be. And then when you do retire, at least then it's locked in. So when you retire, that coefficient is locked in, and that's the money you'll get, and you'll get it for the rest of your life. Okay, that's why pension is really, really, really important to have beyond other topics, is because you don't want your money to run out on you. That's basically it. You don't want if you have another good way to retire is to have an apartment that you're renting. So you can keep that apartment, you can rent it out and get money from the rental for the rest of your life. But just having a savings pot without knowing how long you're going to live is not necessary, is not optimal. And then what's left, okay, is that clear? Any questions on that? Okay, so what's left for the spouse at the end, okay, and in this case, the spouse is a woman, and which is most cases, but doesn't have to be every case. And what usually happens actually is, according to most life expectancies, women end up living longer than men. They're also, the marriage, usually men are older than their wives, and usually the women live a few years more than men do. So usually you have many more widows than you have widowers. That's the normal case. It's obviously not every case. But so what ends up happening, the spouse gets a certain percentage of the pension that the husband or the first person got. So besides, she can get, of course, her own pension from her own job that she also worked, but she also, depending on which plan, she'll also get a percentage. Normally, it would be 60% of what the husband gets. So if a husband had a pension of 10,000 shekels a month, after he passed away, the woman would continue to have a pension of 6,000 a month until she passes away. So the provision of this pension is not only provision of long life for a person, but it also provides support for long life of a person's spouse. Okay, so I thought it was very important to just explain that. That's why it's very important. And that's basically why the Israeli government decided to create a law. Basically, employers must provide pensions for workers. That's been around since 2008. Before that, people didn't have pensions, and that's why A lot of the people that are retiring now still have low pensions. But since 2008, employers must provide pensions to employees, and even people who are self-employed must provide pensions to themselves of a certain amount. Even that is law right now, and you can get fined if you don't do a pension for yourself. Even though I don't know if they actually follow up on that law, but it actually exists. So what exactly is included in that pension? What is an employer's obligation towards an employee regarding a pension? So here we're getting to little numbers, and I don't want to get too bogged down in numbers, but just very quickly, we're talking about at least 18%, 18.5% of a person's salary needs to go to pension. So if a person makes 10,000 shekels, it means that 18.5%, which is 1,850 shekels, needs to be put aside for pension every single month. Not a small number. Part of that comes from the employer's contribution, and part of that comes from employees' contribution. It's divided. The employer's contribution is 6.5% from his money. The employer puts down extra beyond the person's salary. He needs to put another 6.5% of his own money. He needs to take from an employee's net amount between 6 and 7%. That's an employee's decision whether he wants to provide 6 or 7% or 6.5, between 6 and 7. And an employer has to put down at least 6% towards a person's pitsuim. Pitsuim, the word pitsuim means the money which an employer is required to pay to a worker if he's dismissed. So in Israel, there's a law, and I don't want to get too much bogged down into this law, but there is a law which 1 month per year is provided to an employee if he's dismissed. Even today, because there's something called Seif 14, Seif 14, most employees have a certain agreement with their employers that even if they quit, they can take whatever is accumulated in their pitsuim. Okay, there's a little bit of details here that I really don't want to go into right now. That's a subject for an hour lecture in itself. So of that 1 month per year, which is 8 1/3%, the employer must provide at least 6% into this fund on a monthly basis. So they don't want, for example, if a person works for 20 years and suddenly there's a big payout, they don't want the employers to be under a situation where they don't have that money set aside. So they want them to already put it into a fund for the worker. All of this 18.5% is put in on a monthly basis into a fund, which is basically in control of the worker, not 100%, but basically in control of the worker, and that's the employer's obligation. Now, legally, he must do it from 3 months from the start of employment if a person has an active pension plan already, retroactively. So from 3 months, if a person has already an active pension plan, from 3 months, retroactively. If a person does not have an active pension plan, it's from 6 months, not retroactively. So somebody who has a new pension, the employer does not have to provide from day one a pension, only from 6 months, but employers do that. As we see some employers that do supply from day one, even people don't have pension plans, but they don't have to. Another thing is, an employer does not have to give the entire salary. He must give it up until the average Israeli salary, which is around 10,000 shekels a month. Beyond that, he is not required to provide a pension. But again, most employers provide pensions for the full course of the salary. So I know there's a lot of numbers and details, but basically, for most people, 3 months in, retroactively, you should be getting at least 18.5% of your salary set aside into a pension fund for the future. A non-significant amount of money.
Amiel?
Yes?
Quick question. You mentioned that this deduction is taken from the net salary. When you say net salary, are you talking about the salary after just income tax has been deducted, or also after mas b'riyut and bituach leumi?
Okay, wait.
What do you define as the net salary here?
I didn't see who was talking. This
is Adrian speaking.
Oh, Adrian. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So the the employer's deduction is not net. It's from the employer's side. The employee's side, the 6 to 7% that the employee must deduct, is taken from his net salary after the deductions.
All three, Mas הכנסה, Mas Bריאות,
Yes.
and Bituach Leumi?
Yes.
Okay.
However, there is a zikui given. There is a tax credit given. Okay, of up until a certain amount, the person will get a tax credit, which will afterwards reduce his amount of taxes that he pays in the end. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions about this? Okay. So that's the employer's obligation. What is the employee's rights? What are the employee's rights? This is the conversation I had with David when he called me after his discussion with his company and the insurance agent. Up until a few years ago, employees had to take the agent of the company itself. Actually, I remember when I originally joined NDS in 1995, I had a similar experience to David. There was some agent which I was called in to meet, and I already had a pension from a previous company, just for 2 years. And as I met him, he just like really didn't impress me too much. I felt like he was like an underworld figure. And he actually happened to be the cousin of the general manager of the company. That general manager ended up getting charged actually afterwards. He was kicked out, and there was a whole embezzlement thing. So, and I was put a lot of pressure to go with this guy because he was the cousin of the general manager and because he was the official agent of the company. And I resisted. I don't know how I resisted because there was legally they could have forced me, but they listened to me. They were okay with it, and they didn't force me to go with this agent. So I had a very similar, I didn't tell you this, David, but I had a very similar thing happen to me many years ago. And since then, recently, they've changed the law in Israel. And now it is that a person has the right to choose whatever insurance company they want to go with, to choose whatever type of pension. There are 3 types we'll learn about in a second. They can choose, all of us have the right to choose whatever type of insurance and whichever agent we want. That is the full right of, okay? So nobody can tell you otherwise. And most employers respect that and allow people, to choose the employee. And also, many times it is a good idea to choose the agent of the company because there are some advantages to being with the agent of the company. But you at least you have the decision. If you want to stick with the agent of the company, if you want to go with somebody else, you have the right to do that. So that is the employee's right. Okay, let's go through. There are 3 types of agents. There are 3 types of pensions. One is called Keren Pensia. The second one is Bituach Menalim, and the third one is called Kupat Gemel. And let's talk for 5 minutes about each one of these. The Keren Pensia. So look at this picture here. This picture is a typical kind of kibbutz kind of picture. We're all for one for all. That's the way I would depict Keren Pensia, because Keren Pensia is a fund in which there are members of the fund. Okay, all the people who have the Keren Pensia are considered to be a member of the fund. And what happens is that in any and the Keren Pensia itself covers, we'll talk about it in a second, long life. It has long life insurance. It has short life insurance, and it has handicapped life insurance. So it has coverage for all the 3 main topics we're worried about when we talk about personal insurance. But what happens is that the coverage for these 3 are what's called hadadi. In other words, we're all members of this fund. If a lot of people suddenly live shorter than expected or shorter than the actuaries expect, then that money will be deducted off of everybody. Okay? If there are many people that live too long and it's unexpected, then that will be deducted over everyone. Okay? If people, surprise, surprise, there are less actuary issues over a certain course of the year, everybody gains from that as well. So once a year, there's an analysis done, the actuaries. Okay, the word actuary means people from the insurance companies that actually look and analyze statistical information about what will happen. The actuaries actually look at the specific information at the end of the year. They look back at the previous year and they see where things stand versus the previous year. And if they see that there's a deficit, they will go and deduct a certain amount of money from everyone. So everyone could, for example, pay out 0.2% at the end of the year, okay, because of actuary corrections at the end of the year. Or it could be that actuary corrections will be a positive. And so everyone will suddenly get an additional 0.2% of their added to their overall savings. So while we're putting aside every month 18.5% into the Karen Pensia, and it's gathering and it's gathering and it's gathering money, and as it gathers more and more money, there is that correction factor which is figured in because of the reciprocatory, or the I don't know how to say hadadi in English actually. I don't know. It doesn't even exist in capitalism, I think. So I don't think there's a word in English for it. It's like socialism. It's like a kibbutz kind of thing, which actually could correct us either plus or minus. Now, so hearing this, I'm sure a lot of people who come from Western countries say, why would I want to have something like a Karen Pensia? Okay, that sounds crazy. Well, actually, for most people, Karen Pensia is the right way to go, despite that shortcoming. And the reason is because the exact fact that the insurance is reciprocatory in nature, or is like a combined pot, one for all for one, allows the insurance that is behind it to be cheaper than insurance with an insurance company. Because if you sign up to insurance with an insurance company, the insurance company, if they have to pay you, they pay from their pocket, they're taking a risk. Okay, so they're going to want to cover their risks, so they're going to charge you higher prices. But with the Karen Pensia, what's going to happen is that if suddenly there's a surprise, there's no risk on the insurance company. The risk is on all the members. It's divided between all the members. And therefore, the rates for disability, the rates for life insurance are lower. It costs less to people. And therefore, for Karen Pensia is not a bad thing to have. Over the past time, people have, a lot of agents have not tried to sell Karen Pensia. The reason mostly was because Karen Pensias are not advantageous to agents, because the amount of money you make off Karen Pensia is not great. So a lot of agents have been pushing people to other solutions, to bituach menalim mostly. But for most people, it's good because it has a package. Okay, so we'll talk about that package for a second. So it works like this. So you put in every month, and the money's gathered together. The coefficient we talked about is decided upon retirement. So when you retire at 67 or any age beyond 60, you can retire any age beyond 60. At the day of retirement, the coefficient is computed. And so it'll be the amount of money saved divided by the coefficient. Okay, that's basically how the Karen Pensia works. During the course of until retirement, we're covered for two things. We're covered for short life, okay? And this is something that insurance agents don't like to dig into so much, because a lot of people call up and say, oh, you want life insurance. And I've heard insurance agents tell me, okay, when they call up life insurance, they don't look at the person's Karen Pensia, because Karen Pensia itself also has a type of life insurance. And it should be taken into account. Maybe a person doesn't need life insurance, okay? Because the Karen Pensia itself has a life insurance, which a lot of people don't even realize. How does that life insurance work? It's a function of a person's salary, basically. So life insurance in a Karen Pensia, if a person, let's say your average person who has at least 2 children, as a spouse and 2 children, they will get their entire salary. For the rest, for their spouse will get 60% of their salary, and their children will get the other 40% of their salary until they're 21. So the kids will only get to the 21, but at least it'll get them through till the age of 21, up to 40% of the salary. And 60% of the salary will go to the spouse for the rest of the spouse's life. So if a person, let's say, makes a salary of 10,000 shekel, the spouse will get every single month 6,000 shekel for the rest of their life under the Karen Pensia. All right? And the children will get the other 4,000 shekel until they're 21. So 2,000 per child, up to 2 children. So that's how short life is covered, and it's quite significant. Does a person also need additional life insurance? It depends. Okay, sometimes people want additional, sometimes people don't want additional or need additional, but it's definitely something that needs to be looked at when a person holistically. In other words, when an insurance agent talks about life insurance, it's very, very important to also take into account the Karen Pensia factor. And And that's one of the reasons why I like Karen Pensia, because it automatically gives that percentage of your salary. The other thing Karen Pensia gives you is what's called nechut, ovdan kosher avodah, or it's called nechut, which is if you can't work, then there's a certain amount of money, which also 75% of your salary you'll get as long as you cannot work. So that is also covered under Karen Pensia. If a person can find another job which matches his skill set or the thing that what he studied in school, the Karen Pensia can come to the person and say, go work. Okay, we're not going to pay. But it has to be something which is according to his experience or according to his education. It can't just be, go work as a bartender. So we see in the Karen Pensia, there's a good package here. There's retirement, there's a type of life insurance called bituach sheirim, and there's bituach nechut. An additional thing the Karen Pensia gives us is it gives government subsidized bonds. The government puts down bonds at 4.86% rate, which is a good rate for bonds, for government bonds, which covers a percentage of a person's pension, depending on age. So if you're over 60, it'll cover 2/3 of your pension, which is fantastic. When you're over 60, to get 2/3 of your pension covered at 4.86% interest is great. When you're younger, that's not necessarily a good thing to have, because when you're younger, you may want something more stock-based, and normally stock-based makes better than 4.86%. But in general, having a government subsidized support, it's something that only exists in the Karen Pensia, and it's a big advantage of the Karen Pensia over other solutions. So for most people, Karen Pensia has a good package. It provides a whole package you need based on your salary. Okay, so this long life is based on what you accumulated. Short life and handicapped life is based on your salary. Okay, so it's a little bit of so there are some cases sometimes where a person may have accumulated a lot of money, but he'll only get based on his salary. So there are some cases like that which need to be looked at differently. But for the most part, the normal average default is to take the Karen Pensia. What else regarding Karen Pensia? You can choose your own investment tracks. These days they are very flexible. You can choose. So for younger people, usually I would say take stock-based, and to handle, if you can handle the different falls that might take, the downturns in the market. So there's stock-based, and but you can also take the more general track, which is 30% stock, or you can just go for no stock at all. You have a chance of choosing the different masulim. And also for the insurance itself, you have a chance that those numbers I gave you, 60%, 75%, those are all, that's the default. But you can also adjust those. You can also impact those, influence them, raise them, reduce them. Obviously, there's a certain amount of money which is being reduced from your accumulated amount every month in order to pay for that insurance. But and you have a chance to adjust it. One more thing about Karen Pensia. Two more things about Karen Pensia is one thing about Karen Pensia is the fact that there are default Karen Pensias that you can just go on online with, like, for example, Altshuler Shacham, who have a very good experience when it comes to investment. So you can just go online and just sign up for Altshuler Shacham yourself. That's one option. The other option is to take the more investment company approach of Karen Pensia, because since Karen Pensia also has the investment side of things, it also has the insurance side of things. So you have both investment companies and insurance companies that do Karen Pensias. And sometimes some people prefer to take an investment company like Altshuler Shacham and just go for them. And some people prefer to take a more insurance company that maybe their investment won't be as great, but their record as far as insurance is concerned is better. And some people just prefer to do it themselves online. And some people prefer to have an agent doing it, because that way they have someone to help them when they switch jobs or when they leave or when something happens, God forbid. So they prefer to have an agent who handles it for them. So there are different ways of handling the Karen Pensia. There's the basically cheap online kind of setup, and there's also the going through an agent. That's pretty much it. One last thing about Karen Pensia is that for the first 5 years of a Karen Pensia, or if a person either joins a Karen Pensia or changes his track, in other words, increases his amount of insurance in a Karen Pensia, for 5 years, there is no coverage for current illnesses. In other words, if a person, let's say, joins on May 10th the Karen Pensia, any illnesses he has on May 10th will not be covered for the first 5 years of him being in the Karen Pensia. And so why is that significant? Because sometimes a person might not even know he has an illness. It could be that person didn't discover that illness, but only a year later will discover the illness. And if it's discovered that the illness existed before May the 10th, for example, then he would not be covered for that insurance. So that's why in the whole Karen Pensia, it's very, very important to try to get in as young as possible, as early as possible, because as we get older, obviously we can have new medical issues. And then once you're in, then it covers you for even for new illnesses. So that's basically the summary of Karen Pensia, which is the default for most, and how it covers you for basically holistically. Any questions about that? Was that clear? Was that too fast, too slow? David, are we okay? Yeah? Okay. So let's go on. The next topic.
All right, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, of course, Ruben.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'll put my video on to ask the question.
Great.
So, I'm just trying to understand. I have a job. I had one job. I have a second job now, and they put me into a pension plan. How do I take more control of it? Meaning, the company said, okay, here's the insurance broker we work with. Do I call up that insurance broker? What are the steps that I should be taking?
Well, normally, if they gave you an insurance agent, that insurance agent should be calling you. Okay, you're talking about a new job.
Let's say my current job. So they set up my pensia. So I don't really know. I said I don't really know what happened. I don't know how to control it or how to investigate it.
Okay. So no agent spoke to you. It's just they did it they used the default and that was it.
They said send in your information. Here you go. Then you have your pensia.
Right. Okay. So they did it, but basically they since you didn't give them information about what you want, they just did it themselves automatically. Okay. So you can find out who your agent is. There are two ways of doing this. Okay. What you can do is you can ask your company who your agent is, and they'll tell you, and you can call your agent up and ask for a meeting with them. Ask them to explain to you what you have. Okay, it's possible to do that. It's possible also for you to go online to what's called the Mislaka Pensionit. Okay, just write in Google Mislaka Pensionit. I could put that in chat also, just to make sure that's okay. Mislaka Pensionit. Where is the chat thing? It's in the chat. Where are we? More chat. Mislaka. Okay. If you go on Mislaka Pensionit and you pay 20 shekels, you can get a summary of what you have. Okay, in all of your insurance policies that you have, or not insurance policies, all of your pension and any pensions you have, you can go to Mislaka Pensionit for 20 shekels. You get all that information. Okay, that's option 2. Option 3 is you can give to someone who can, to ask him to analyze for you what you have. So for example, I or any kind of agent that does pension planning, it's called the Nituach Tik, I could go get the Mislaka Pensionit of anybody, and then I look at it and I analyze it and I give you recommendations for what you should do and what you should improve. Okay, so you can consult with someone. Those are the basically 3 possibilities. Okay, either go to your own agent, go online and get the information yourself, or give it to someone professional to ask to analyze it for you. For obviously that's for a cost. Okay. In addition to that, actually, if you're already asking the question, if you want your insurance information, like what policies you have, then there's something else which is free called Har Habituach. Okay, Har Habituach. Actually, with Har Habituach, I want to be careful here, and I want to write down the actual site, because there are some sites that call themselves Har Habituach, but they're sites that are just trying to grab you and sell you stuff. There's Har Habituach, which is the official government Har Habituach, which is absolutely free. which gives you information about all your insurance policies. Well, all you need to do is put your Tudat Zut and stuff in. I'll send you the copy. And it will give you a list of all your insurance policies. Okay? That's Har Bituach. It's also a very important site. And what I would usually do for somebody that I do an analysis of, I would go to get his permission. I would go to Har Bituach, get the policy numbers, and then I could get permission to go actually to the insurance companies and get the detailed information, because Har Bituach is only just a high-level summary. Okay, it's just a summary of the policies. And then from that summary, you could actually, either you could call up the insurance companies, ask them to send you the details, or you can ask somebody professional to do that, and they can go and they'll get able to gather details of all the companies and be able to compare, your life insurance and your Karen Pensia and show you the holistic picture. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good question. And I'm glad I had a chance to mention that. Okay, so that's the Karen Pensia. The next option is called Bituach Menalim. Now, what was good about Bituach Menalim in the past is, remember that coefficient we talked about, that number, that's divisor. That coefficient in Bituach Menalim up until 2013 was frozen, was in a contract. So people who have Bituach Menalim from way back, from before 2013, and especially people who have from before 2001, because before 2001 the conditions were really, really good. Before 2013, they were not as good, but also good. The coefficient was frozen for life. Okay, so you didn't have to worry about the life expectancy going up, because you had that in contract with the insurance company. And that worked really well. That works really well for a lot of people in Israel who have policies from back then. But obviously, the government in Israel stopped that because they didn't feel the insurance companies could support something like that. They were afraid the insurance companies would go under supporting something like that. And therefore, since 2013, the Bituchei Menalim are no longer provide that option. And since then, basically, Bituach Menalim has become much, much less attractive, because that was the main feature of the Bituach Menalim, was that frozen coefficient, was that frozen magic number. So up until maybe 2 months ago, I would have said to anyone, don't do Bituach Menalim, even if your agent tries to convince you to, because they're just trying to make money off of you. But that's changed a little bit recently, because two companies, at least, Migdal and Harel, just came out with a low-cost Bituach Menalim. So they're trying to compete. They realize that people are no longer doing Bituach Menalim, and they're trying to compete with the Karen Pensia. So what in the end what does Bituach Menalim give us? So it gives us pretty much that same long life support like Karen Pensia, with one slight difference, is that in a Bituach Menalim, you can fix the coefficient at the age of 60, even if you don't retire. So in Karen Pensia, you only can fix that coefficient when you retire. In Bituach Menalim, you could fix it at 60 even if you don't retire. Okay, it's not a huge difference, because if you end up retiring anyways a few years later, so the amount of life expectancy won't go up that much. It's not a dramatic change, but it is one of the advantages of a Bituach Menalim. In the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing as a Karen Pensia. The amount of money that's gathered divided by the coefficient is what you get. What you get finally as your pension. Bituach Menalim also has a handicapped insurance, as Ovdan Kosher Avoda. It's actually even better than the Karen Pensia one, because it has it's a little more specific in nature. I don't want to go into this now either, because time is running through. But there's a little bit of an advantage over the Karen Pensia's handicapped. In the Karen Pensia itself, and there are ways to solve that in the Karen Pensia as well. In other words, it's not a big deal, because if need be, that's solvable in the Karen Pensia. So the base plan in Bituach Menalim has a better support for Ovdam Kosher, for lack of being able to work, than the Karen Pensia. But I don't think it's a huge deal. It is more expensive than the Karen Pensia one. So it comes out more expensive normally. And if you want to have life insurance, you have to buy life insurance. So that's the big difference between Bituach Menalim and Karen Pensia. Karen Pensia has the built-in monthly sherim, and with Bituach Menalim, you don't have that. It's extra. You have to buy it. You have to pay for it. And as I said before, the payment would normally be higher than the payment on the Karen Pensia. So it's more expensive than the Karen Pensia's life insurance. Okay, so that's basically the Bituach Menalim. As I said, up until very recently, I would have said, don't even think about Bituach Menalim. And now there are some people maybe that have life insurance policies elsewhere that they're happy if they feel covers them enough, and therefore don't want to pay into the Bituach She'im of Karen Pensia, and want to be able to maybe have more control over their money and don't want to have that kind of risk of the actuary risk we talked about in the Karen Pensia, where if suddenly too many people die at once, then everyone gets cut. So some people prefer to have that private contract with the insurance company and without the life insurance. So it is an option. So that's Bituach Menalim. And the third option is called Kupat Gemel. So this is an option which very few people use, but some people, they just don't need any insurance at all, or they have that insurance separate. And all they want to do is they want to take that money and they want to put it and invest it. So yes, it is possible to do that. You can say you want a Kupat Gemel. You can choose any investment company in Israel. You can choose any track, stock-based, bond-based, anything you want. And you can just put the money into savings and have no insurance at all, no insurance deductions at all. It's something which it's not relevant for most people because most people need at least some kind of basic life insurance. But it's definitely something which for some people is relevant. One thing that has to be understood is, even though it is a savings account, it doesn't mean you can just take the money out in one bulk at the end of when you retire. The money that's going in a normal case, okay, there are some exceptions, it's very complicated, but the normal case is you can only take it out monthly on retirement. So the savings goes in there, and to take it out, you actually need to, right now you need to move it to a Karen Pensia in order to take the money. In other words, you can have it in your savings account. So this is one of the things about these solutions, Bituach Menalim, Karen Pensia, and Kupat Gemel, is that you can actually move between them. You can start out with a Karen Pensia, and then after a year say, okay, now I want a Bituach Menalim, and take all your money and move it to Bituach Menalim, or move it to a Kupat Gemel. You can actually move things back and forth at will. Okay, it's a little bit of a hassle, but it can be done. But when you talk about the savings, you need to move it to, for example, to a Karen Pensia or a Bituach Menalim at retirement. Although they are talking about being able to take it in an annuity. In other words, being able to take it directly from the savings account. But you can, in any case, you can't, it's not a savings account in that you can just take it in one lump sum. We're talking about anyways monthly amounts that are supposed to cover long life. Because that's what the government is trying to do, is trying to force the pension to, basically they're trying to force you to save and take that money back on a monthly basis, and not on a one-time basis. So those are the three options: Karen Pensia, Bituach Menalim, Kupat Gemel. And if you choose Karen Pensia, you're not making a mistake. Normally you're not making a mistake. But there are cases where it is worth it to do a more detailed analysis because some people might need a different solution. And you could also divide between them. You could say, this part of my salary to Karen Pensia, this part of my salary to Bituach Menalim, this part of my salary to pure savings. You have that option as well. So the important thing is to do what's good for you and not what's good for the agent. In other words, to do what you think is right for you. Okay, any questions? Okay. So that's pensions. Now, just to get into insurance for a second. So I was just going to talk about 5 types of insurance. The first one is, I mentioned it before. I'll go through it very, very quickly. So there are 3 types of Ovdan Kosher. 3 types of basically insurance which covers people who cannot work anymore. One is he's forced to take any job, and you don't want that one. In other words, I don't think anybody wants to have coverage for issues where you can't work, where you're forced to take any job. I think that most people will not want that kind of insurance. I kind of called it vocation-based and occupation-based. So the Karen Pensia is vocation-based. It's betem lenisyono aksharato o haskalato. Okay? So it's basically according to your experience or according to what you've studied. And the Bituach Menalim the standard bituach manalim solution is not always, but normally occupational based. In other words, it's is actual occupation. The difference between these two is subtle and beyond the scope of this presentation, but it exists, and it's something that needs to be taken care of. When a person decides whether to take care of pension or bituach manalim, this subtle difference should be looked at. Okay, the next thing, where am I? Yeah. The next thing is life insurance. I want to show you something very, pretty extraordinary when it comes to life insurance. This is an analysis, okay, that it's a true story, and somebody in his 50s, okay, and this person has a current insurance policy. So I went to the Hara Bituach, and I got the information. I went to the insurance company. I asked them, how much is the person paying? And this is what the person is paying. Now, you can see one thing to note when it comes to life insurance is the life insurance payments. There are two types of life insurance. There's fixed payments and there's variable payments that change once a year. The fixed payment life insurance policies are quite expensive. Not usually not worthwhile. So what most people have is the variable life insurance policies, which when people are young, they don't change so much. But as the person grows older and maybe needs it more and more, you can see the life insurance starts going up quite significantly. So this person right now is paying quite a lot of money for his life insurance. Okay, look at this. This is for 1.2 million shekels. It's paying over 400 shekels a month. It's a very expensive policy. But the thing is, it's also going to become even more and more expensive through, over the next years. Within 8 years, it's going to be hitting 12,620 per month. Per month. This is per month, not per year. Okay, this is an extraordinary amount of money. If you figure out it's hundreds of thousands of shekels to pay over a 10-year period for life insurance. And most people don't even realize it, because when they're sold life insurance, all they really look at is, all they're really shown, okay, by law, they have to be sent their full distribution of payments, but some people don't go by the law. And most people who get those documents don't even read them. And you don't really realize that the insurance payments are going to go up and go up and go up. And then maybe when you need it most, maybe it'll just become too expensive for you and you'll have to cancel it. So first thing to note is when you buy life insurance, to take a look at the distribution and not just look at what's going to happen next. Now, when I did the comparison, I noticed that I could purchase a new policy for much cheaper. So the price the person was paying was very high, and that's quite common in Israel because life insurance policies went down in price a few years ago, and actually what happened was there used to be more expensive prices but bigger discounts. So there are people that didn't get those discounts, like people that worked in high-tech companies were charged the full premium amount. And recently the prices were lowered, but the discounts were cut. So at the end of the day, basically, we have a lot of people who are still stuck with old life insurance policies, which are more expensive, and the new policies are cheaper. Okay, and then in a second, we'll talk about this last line here, which is also quite significant. I want to explain this first. What should a person do? Okay, should a person cancel his current policy and put the new policy? The answer to that is maybe. Okay, it's not clear. It's not so easy to just say that, to just come out and say that. Normal insurance agents will come and say to you, yes, look what I have for you. I have you a cheaper price. Cancel your previous one and give me the new one. You have to understand that when an agent comes and says that, first of all, obviously he's trying to save you money, but insurance agents get a commission for the sale. So he's also trying to make that commission at the same time. So you have to be very, very careful when just going and saying, yes, let me just cancel that life insurance policy and give you a new one. Because it's not always a good idea to cancel and bring a new life insurance policy in there. First of all, the person might have new medical issues. And there are certain topics which are related to the amount of time that a person has a policy. So I don't want to go into this in detail right now, but there is something to be said about the fact that a person has a policy for a few years, and you don't necessarily want to cancel his policy. What you could do is, what I would do in such a case is, I would consider, for example, to I could offer to the customer, I could say, you know what, you have a very expensive policy. Let me take it over. Okay, you can in a second. You can sign a document giving me the authority on the policy, and then I can go to the insurance company and ask for a discount with the current policy instead of canceling and doing a new one. Okay, would that be in my best interest as an agent? No. Okay, will I make nothing off it? No. I mean, you get also for the monthly, so it's not like, it's not the end of the world. But obviously, it's much more lucrative, much more lucrative to cancel and sell a new policy. But when you talk about the best interest of the customer, it might be the right thing to do, but it might not be the right thing to do. And that's why integrity is super, super important here. And as customers, it's also very, very, very important to be very careful on your side and not just let especially these people call you on the phone and convince you on the phone and don't even meet you. You have these mukdim of the insurance companies, and they don't care about you because all they're trying to do is make their commissions. And sometimes people just say, okay, it sounds good, go for it. Don't do that when it comes to life insurance. Be very, 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 very careful before canceling anything. That's my piece of advice. So that's going from a current policy to a new policy. So maybe cancel, maybe get a discount, try to get a discount. And then there's another option which they don't tell you about so much. The reason they don't tell you about this option is twofold. One of it is because this didn't always exist. It left, recently came back again about a year ago. But I think the main reason why it's not talked about is it's less lucrative for the agents. And it's called הכנסה למשפחה. And what it does is it gives you the money not as a lump sum, but it gives you the money as a monthly. So in this case, a person would get a 1.2 million shekel, boom, okay? Is that what a person needs when somebody passes away? Sometimes yes. Sometimes you want to have that lump sum to use it for buying apartments for kids or for putting kids through school or whatever. So yes, it could be. But הכנסה למשפחה actually has some logic behind it because it gives a monthly for a certain time period. So in this case, a person will get 9,000 shekels for 15 years. But just be careful. The 15 years starts from the time the person signs up to the program. So if let's say I sell insurance policy for 1.2 million shekels on June 19th, he'll pay 280 shekels. Okay, and if he dies in 2027, his family will still get 1.2 million shekels. Okay, but he's paying more every month because his age went up in the meantime. With הכנסה למשפחה, from the day of the signature, you get 9,000 shekels for the next 15 years. So if you die day after the policy is signed, there's 15 years times 9,000 shekels, which is 1.7 million shekels. But if a person, let's say, dies over here, like 3 years before the end of the policy, after 12 years, then the person will only get 3 years times 9,000 shekels a month. So basically what happens is the policy is going down in the amount that it's covering. Now, that might be what the person needs, though. In other words, there could be that a person just needs to have that 9,000 shekels coverage for the next 15 years, for the next 20 years, for the next 25 years. That's really what he needs because that's what he needs covered. And in that case, what we're seeing here is the premiums are much lower. They don't go up. Because, yes, on one hand, the person is getting older, but on the other hand, the actual overall sum that is being paid out is actually going down automatically. And therefore, it's a much more swallowable kind of premium. I don't think any of us want to start paying 1,660 shekels or even 1,260 shekels, 245 shekels a month for a life insurance policy, okay, unless we really, really need it. And with הכנסה למשפחה, okay, the person will only get it for a few years, and it's a monthly, but at least the cost is somewhere around 400 shekels. Now, why do agents prefer not prefer this? Because an agent gets not only a upfront payment for selling an insurance policy, agent also gets an ongoing percentage of the premium a person's paying throughout the life of the policy. So yeah, if a person will cancel the policy, he'll get nothing. But if a person doesn't, most people don't even notice and will just leave their policy. And therefore, at some point, this insurance agent is going to make a nice chunk of money because he's going to get a percentage of this 1,262 shekels, while the person who sold הכנסה למשפחה will be left only with a percentage of 496 shekels per month. And therefore, for the agent, it's normally better to sell these policies, especially to people who don't follow their expenses and don't realize this balloon that's kind of growing on them through the years. So am I telling you should do הכנסה למשפחה? No, absolutely not. Okay, it depends on needs. It needs to be analyzed. It should be done carefully. But I do think that you should go to your agents and you should ask for that option of הכנסה למשפחה, and you should look at that option opposite to life insurance, and then you should make a decision maybe to do part life insurance, part הכנסה למשפחה, or do all הכנסה למשפחה following analysis, and not just, just go with the life insurance. So both of them are the same. They're both exactly the same when it comes to the what causes them to get kicked in. They're both life insurance policies. One of them is a one-time payment, and one of them is a monthly. That's basically the difference between them. So that's something which I suggest. I think it's a little tip for all of us customers to talk about and to analyze. And I've done an analysis for a couple of customers, and I've seen that the savings off of going from life insurance to הכנסה למשפחה, for example, in this case, we're talking about a savings of something like 25,000 shekels savings over the course of 10 years. That is huge, huge, huge savings if you go with הכנסה למשפחה. So we're talking about big, big money. Okay, so that's life insurance. Any questions? Was that clear? Was that clear? Or was that too fast? David? Yeah? Susan? Great. Great. Okay. Thanks a lot. The next topic is a quick topic. It's called COD. Assisted living. Is that the right term? Assisted living? Is that the English term for it? Basically, assisted living, or COD, means that a person will get support for if they can't do actions of standing up, sitting down. Basically, they need to be taken care of. So a person will get a monthly amount to bring in a caretaker. It could be either pocketed or it could be given to a nursing home. Basically, that's called ביטוח סיעודי. Kupat cholim, all the Kupat cholim have ביטוח סיעודי, which covers 5 years worth of payments. And I normally recommend to everyone to do that. In other words, it's usually normally worthwhile to do the Kupat cholim solution. You can't do that with an agent. You do that yourself. Kupat cholim. The insurance companies, up until a few months ago, it's actually already more than a few months. It's about 8 months ago. Also sold COD policies. They were very expensive, but a lot of people did them, and they were good to have normally, but expensive. But the insurance companies stopped to market them for all sorts of reasons. I guess maybe that shows how good they were for the customers. So currently it is not possible to get a assisted living solution with an insurance company. And therefore, right now, there's nothing that can be done. I do think that eventually it will come back. So it is something to look for, and a person needs to make a decision. I just want to say one thing about insurance is that my view on insurance is that, on one hand, I don't like those people that scare people, that are constantly saying, oh, you need to insure everything, because first of all, it's impossible to insure everything, and a person needs a bit of emunah, and a person needs a little bit of trust, and you can't cover yourself for everything, and therefore you want to try to cover as much as possible the real catastrophes that could happen to you. That's why life insurance, I think, is an important one. But are all types of insurance absolutely necessary? I wouldn't say that. I think anybody that puts pressure on buying insurance, every insurance that exists on the market, I think it's too much. On the other hand, I think that people just ignore insurance and just to rely on good luck is also, in my opinion, it's not responsible. I think a person needs to have a basic insurance plan. So I think there's like a middle ground there, and that needs to be taken care of. COD is one of the more important ones, but on the other hand, when the private COD existed, it was very, very expensive, and not everybody could afford to do the COD, and I wouldn't say that you're irresponsible if you don't do COD. So that's anyways something to talk about because it doesn't exist today, but it is something to watch out for when it comes. Health insurance. Okay, that's a topic which we only have 20 minutes left, so there's no way I can. Health insurance is a topic which could be talked about for 3 days straight because it's extremely, extremely complicated. In my view, the private health insurance is something which is important for people to have. And the question is, what parts of the health insurance? So I want to talk about three topics in the health insurance. I want to talk about trufot, okay, medicine. I want to talk about operations, and I want to talk about implants. So first of all, medicine. So the whole topic of medicine is quite a complicated topic in Israel. Every single year, there's a budget discussion which takes place where it's decided which medicine will be added to the budget, which will be removed from the budget. It's highly political. Some people say it's even, there's a lot of bribes going on in the background, the big companies putting pressure on the government to include certain medicines and not include certain medicines. And at the end of the day, the list of medicines that the government wants to support is much, much longer than the list of medicines that they can support. And therefore, at the end of the day, Kupat Cholim cannot support all types of medicine properly. Even the Kupat Cholim, the added, what's called Bituach Mashlim, Shaban, as it's called, Shirut Bituach Nusaf, the Maccabi Zahav, Mu'chedet C, Lumit Zahav, whatever it is, even they are not able to cover all the medicines that are required. And therefore, I personally think that private medical insurance, at least for the medicine part, is important. Now, you don't need to buy a whole big package deal when it comes to medical insurance, unless you work for a big company, which gives it to you as a whole package. But you can choose parts of it. Okay, you can choose just trufot and implants, or you can choose operations, or you can do both, or you can choose also other extras. So insurance just for medicine is not very expensive. And I'll give you an example of just a small example of how important it is. Even if a drug is listed on the Israeli government as being approved for use, they not only approve it for use, but they approve it for which use and in which order. So for example, if you have some kind of, let's say, the example I was shown was an example of a start of lung cancer. So the government tells you what, God forbid, the government tells you what is the order that needs to take place. Okay, so first you need to have this type of tipul, and there's a certain medicine which is only approved as, let's say, the third step. Okay, so it's step by step. So even though a drug is approved, okay, it has to be approved for a specific use. So for example, if there's a drug which is approved for lung cancer use, okay, it's approved for lung cancer use only in the specific order. And if you want to use it, let's say for corona, okay, you won't be able to use that drug for corona because it's not approved for use for corona. Even if it's proven that it helps for corona, you still cannot use that drug for corona unless the government decides that it can be used for corona. What's the reason? The reason is when the government approves a certain usage, they're also trying to figure out the percentage of how many people will actually use that drug. So if they allow a certain drug and they allow it as a first line of support, let's say there's a very expensive drug, and they say, yes, you can use it as a first line of support for lung cancer. So a lot of people will end up the second that they have lung cancer will run and use this drug, then there won't be enough money in the budget to support the drug. So that's why the government is very, very careful about deciding on the usages of the drug, okay? That is in the public medicine sector. And when you buy private medical insurance, that kind of thing is taken care of. You can use a drug not for a specific purpose. You can use a drug not in the order that it was defined by the government. And if you do a good job of choosing the right type of insurance, you'll get what's called Turufot B'hatama Ishit, personal medicine, which is the latest thing in medicine, which people who have cancer, they take from their genes, they take from their DNA, and they create a specific drug out of their DNA. I haven't heard the statistics about how helpful it is, but I do know that there's a whole industry behind that right now, where actual medicine is actually built on demand, okay? Or there's medicine which is defined as, medicine which is only for very, very rare medicines, or medicines which are under trial, for example, okay? Medicines under trial will not be approved by the government, but some medicines under trial would be approved under private medicines, because if there's a drug which is under trial and is approved for trial, let's say by the FDA, then private companies will support up to a certain amount of a few million shekels or a few 100,000 shekels for certain topics, a few million shekels for other topics, that kind of medicine. So I actually think that the medicine part could be quite significant. And if anybody comes to me and says, I don't want to do medical, I don't have money for medical insurance, I at least try to convince them to take out the medicine part of it. Together with the medicine is the implants, and the whole topic of implants also is problematic when it comes to Israel, because you go on a certain queue or a certain line and you have to wait in line. While if you have private medicine, then you can find other solutions which allow you to bypass the line. The line is very, very long for implants. And the third topic is operations. So basically, under the basic public insurance without mashlim, then you can't choose your doctor and you have to wait in line a long time. And if you take out Muchedet Zahav or mashlim or whatever, then you have some ability to choose your own doctors, and you have some ability to have shortened time scales to get an operation, which is really, really important. But private insurance gives you better support when it comes to that, because private insurance allows you to cut the times even more. For example, the private insurance, because they pay more than the mashlim of the Kupat Cholim. So if you have let's say you have a certain doctor, and the doctor's on the list of Muchedet C and is also on the list of Harel private medical insurance. That person, that doctor will only allow 2 patients per month, let's say, on Kupat Cholim and 10 patients per month on Harel. So they actually, even though a person is on both lists, okay, your chances of getting a quicker support are if you have the private insurance. So private operations, and then there's also private operations in Chutz La'aretz, in case you want to go to Chutz La'aretz for an operation, are also something which is not as important as medicine, but also can be quite helpful. My wife had to do some small procedure, and she was sent to do it in the hospital, the Shpuz Yom. And so we have, because my wife is a teacher, actually, I have not as an agent, we have the teachers union health insurance policy, which, by the way, anybody who can get that, it's a very, very good policy. I did it for my kids as well. So I found that the same doctor that would give me in Bet Choli Meir this simple operation does it in a private place for Harel, and I preferred her to not have to go to the hospital, the whole hassle of the hospital, but to do in some private Ental, it's called, some kind of private place. And the doctor himself on Thursday entered in, this is a real story from Thursday, he entered in the info for the operation, and I called up this morning and they said to me, it's already approved. And that's it. It's already approved to do it in this private place. So private medical insurance is important. As I said, most important is medicine. After that is hashtalot, and after that is operations. And then there are also other extras related to health insurance, which are more nice to have, but could be helpful. For example, ability to get advice from doctors. You don't have to pay 1,000 shekels to visit a doctor, but you get back most of the money if you go and visit some kind of professor. There are some other things that the private insurance gives you. One of the things that can be done sometimes, but this needs to be done carefully, it's sometimes worthwhile to lower track the Kupat Cholim insurance, in other words, to save money and not do Zahav, but to do Kesef instead of Zahav on the Kupat Cholim, and instead of that, to spend that money on a private insurance policy. But again, that's something that needs to be done very carefully. And as I said, the field is very, very complex and needs to be done professionally. So that's like 5 minutes of health insurance in a real high-level nutshell. But as I said, it's a very complicated topic. And if there's okay, one more thing about health insurance. Yeah, this is okay, we can skip over this right now. So that's insurance. The other topic is investment. Now, what you're seeing right now, by the way, what I'm trying to show you here, and this is like the point of this whole lecture maybe is, besides the details behind it, is that everything's tied together, okay? If a person comes, if you want to take out life insurance, okay, you need to be looking at your Karen Pensia, but also you need to be looking at your investments, and you need to be tying your investments to your life insurance and to your Karen Pensia, because it's part of your investments is your pension, and your investment also is a good backup plan to life insurance. Maybe a person, if he has a lot of investment, maybe he doesn't need life insurance because he has a good backup plan. And therefore, the right way to look at the whole picture is to look at the whole picture on a wide basis, to make a decision on insurance after you've seen the pension situation, make a decision on pension, insurance, and investment all in one holistic view. That's my approach to things. And normally agents won't do this because they're not, it's too complicated, it takes time, and they're definitely not gonna do this for free. And a lot of agents also don't feel comfortable doing this because they don't feel like they have enough the wide viewpoint, and they're also focused on something very specific. And not everybody needs this holistic picture. It depends, if you're just starting out as a Zug Tza'ir, so just take that Karen Pensia and worry about it later. But once you go through life and have gathered, your Karen Pensia or your pension is gathered a bit, and your insurance policy maybe got more complicated because you bought this insurance and that insurance from different agents, and it's all, you don't even know what you have anymore. And then your investment also is split into different places. You might want to look at that in one go. And just one example, for example, of investment, there's something called the Karen Ishtalmut, which I would guess you've heard of the Karen Ishtalmut right over here. Maybe some of you have heard of it. Basically, Karen Ishtalmut is not, the employer is not required to supply Karen Ishtalmut, but many employers do provide that Karen Ishtalmut, which is the employer puts 7.5% of your salary into a fund, and you put 2.5% of your salary into a fund. In other words, it's 3/4 subsidized by the employer. And it's money which is, after 6 years, cashable. In other words, you can take that money out after 6 years. So it's not even money which you have to leave till you retire. So it's really, really a great advantage, really something really good. But the real point of Karen Ishtalmut is sometimes misunderstood and overlooked, and that is the taxation topic. So the Karen Ishtalmut gains are exempt from capital gains taxes in Israel. Totally exempt from capital gains taxes in Israel. So if you have, let's say, put aside 10% of your salary. By the way, it's up to a certain amount of your salary. It's up to 15,600 of your salary. Okay, so for most people, that's more than their salary. So let's say you put aside every month 10% of that, 7.5 the employer and 2.5 you, 10%, 1,563 shekels per month for 12 months. So you have about, let's say, 18,000 shekels gathered a year. And 10 years later, you have 180,000 shekels. Plus, you also have profits. Let's say you've made, meanwhile, the market, you've invested it 100% stock, and stock does, on the average, maybe 8-10% per year. Okay, and you've done, except for lately, and you've done maybe 10% per year, and suddenly that 180,000 shekels, because of compounded interest, is suddenly worth 300,000 shekels, 400,000 shekels. The capital gains, in other words, the amount of money that you made between the 180 and the 350, are 100% exempt for tax when it comes from Israeli taxation. Now, if you're an American citizen, you may get taxed by Uncle Sam. That's a separate topic, which also needs to be looked into. I'm an American citizen, at least for now. I may decide to stop being an American citizen, but for now I am one. But you can even maybe get out of taxation in America. But for the most part, for an Israeli citizen, you are fully exempt with capital gains tax. And therefore, that is the big advantage of Karen Ishtalmut, is the exemption from capital gains tax. And that is why I normally tell people the Karen Ishtalmut may be considered to be short-term or medium-term investment because you can take it out after 6 years, but it's better to leave it in until retirement. It's better to use other money. If you have other money available, let's say you need to make a wedding for your kid, okay, it's better not to use your Keren Ishtalmut. It's better to use other savings you might have, which you're going to pay taxes on capital gains on, not to use this money in Keren Ishtalmut. Okay, or there's another option is, people don't know this, you can most of the time take a loan off the Keren Ishtalmut at very good rates. Okay, you're better off taking a loan off the Keren Ishtalmut, and then the Keren Ishtalmut continues to be tax-free rather than withdraw the Keren Ishtalmut. So that turns the Keren Ishtalmut, that makes a switch in people's minds suddenly, and suddenly you're not looking at the Keren Ishtalmut as short-term, but you're looking at the Keren Ishtalmut as a long-term investment. And based on that, when you start doing holistic planning of a person's portfolio, you need to take that into account. And most people, what they do is they just throw in 30% stock, carte blanche across everything, across the pension, across the Keren Ishtalmut, across their savings account, everything is just 30% or less. But if you start thinking of Keren Ishtalmut as a long-term investment, and definitely your pension is a long-term investment, then you might want to adjust that. And you have to sit down and do a holistic view and say, oh, you know what? This is long-term investment, so we'll take more risks there. We'll put that in stock, okay? And this is more short-term investments by savings account. Let's put that more in bonds right now. Let's make that a safer haven. That's normally not done on a normal basis by agents, and that's something which is, important to do for someone who has assets where you can mix it around. Now, think about it. If you actually put your Keren Ishtalmut as your stock-based, okay? In other words, your big money will be made on the Keren Ishtalmut. You have a double gain here, okay? Not only do you have a gain where you've left it in for a long time and you've made money tax-free, but you've made your big profits you've made on the tax-free part of your portfolio, okay? Why make high amounts of money on stocks that you own if you have to afterwards pay 25% tax on the gains? Wouldn't you rather make the money where you don't have to pay 25% tax on the gains? So so what I'm trying to say, it's a little complicated what I said right now, and that's why I think that's one of the things that needs to be planned holistically, to look at a person's investment, to analyze what money is needed for short term, what money is needed medium term, what money is needed long term, and based on that, make the right divisions and put whatever is needed to be short term in a more safer investment, with fixed interest, with bonds, and anything which is long term to put in a more stock-based solution. So that's what I call a holistic approach to investment planning, which I'm a big believer in. Two other things just to note in investment. There's another decision that could be made. It's active versus passive investing. Some people might just want to link their Keren Ishtalmut or other money they have to the Tel Aviv 125 index, or maybe to the Dow Jones, or maybe to the S&P 500. It's possible to do all of those. In other words, it's possible to give it to an investment house that will actively invest it to you, and it's also possible to link it to some kind of passive index. And those are decisions that need to be made. There are pluses and minuses, and that's something to be discussed. Also, possibly outside of the scope here of this lecture, but in holistic planning, to also take into account the ability to do active and passive planning investing. And the other topic is something called the IRA, and it's not the American IRA. This is an Israeli IRA. It's totally different. It means IRA means an independent investment fund. So Keren Ishtalmut, you can either give it to a company that will invest it for you, or you can decide to take control of your Keren Ishtalmut and also of other funds you may have, and you may decide to do the investments yourself. And that is possible, not normally recommended to do your own management, but it is possible and it exists. And the commissions obviously are lower if you do it yourself. So that is what I covered here today. When you choose an agent at the end of the day, the most important thing is to choose someone you trust, to choose someone you feel will look after your interests. It is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult in this topic to stay objective. especially for a person who's trying to feed their families and pay mortgages. The whole market of insurance and investment and pensions, it's very complex, and there are a lot of interests flying around, and therefore to have someone that you feel you could trust, I think is very, very important. As I said, someone that has a wide holistic view and can see the big picture. Thoroughness is very important, especially when it comes to, if somebody makes a mistake, it can cost you a lot of money. If he, especially for example, insurance, if somebody signs you up improperly and doesn't fill out the medical form properly, okay, you can afterwards find a situation where you're gonna have to go to court to get your money just because the insurance agent made a mistake. Okay, you can sue the insurance agent for not doing a thorough job on your form. It's possible, but nobody wants to go to court when they hit insurance situations. So thoroughness when it comes to insurance is very important. Also, when it comes to investment, you don't want a person to make mistakes in their calculation and afterwards for you to make the wrong decisions. You want somebody who's able to get what's needed from the insurance company. In other words, somebody that will watch for your interests, that will be able to dig his teeth and will be able to chase after those companies and get what's needed from the company. Just to have an insurance policy, you're right, in the normal case they'll pay, but there are also not normal cases. There have been cases where, what happens is, like, for example, the insurance company will start digging back into medical records and will start finding things from the past which weren't discussed. And they'll start, they want to avoid paying the 2 million shekels or 1.5 million shekels they promised to pay. And you want an agent that will help you because, if you think about it, if somebody is left as a widow and there's no agent there, and the agent there just, took his money and ran, and the insurance company is refusing to pay, okay? Think about what a horrible situation that will be for the widow to have to deal with that themselves. It's enough to have to deal with the fact that the person became a widow. And that's why you want to have an agent you can trust. And each person has the person that they will trust. And it's just very important to find that person for you. And it's important also to have someone who's proactive and in touch with you. In other words, I heard this, an insurance agent that doesn't know what's going on with the families, things change, and an agent should be in touch with those changes, should know what's going on. A new child is born. The agent should know the child is born so that the child can be added to the medical policy. So, this topic is actually a very difficult one because normally in order to be able to make a living, you need to have a lot of customers. You need to have, let's say, hundreds of customers. And it's very, very hard to keep in touch with every single customer. So I'm not saying this is not an easy way to solve this in touch kind of proactive solution, but it is something to take into account. And if you see that the insurance agent is not proactive enough, then what you can do at least is you can actually call him every once in a while and stay in touch with him, find out what's happening, what's new, every 6 months, every 12 months, to see if there are any updates, if any laws have changed, if any policies have changed, if anything, any important information has come out. So that's my advice for choosing an agent. So that was what I prepared. Basically wanted to show you the wide view. I'd like to hear if there are any questions about anything I said, if there are any specific topics you think would there be interest to see more details about. In any case, this is the first time I'm giving this specific lecture, so if there are any comments about the lecture, things you think I should cover more or things that you think I should cover less, I'd be happy to get feedback from you right now, from everyone.
Amiel, maybe you could send your number in the chat, or if anybody else wants to try to get in touch with you, if they have any questions in general about any of the things discussed, they could easily reach out to me, and I can put you in touch. You can also put your email in the chat. Whatever works.
And also share the presentation, which is there as well.
Thank you very much.
And no problem.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amiel.
No problem.
Thank you. Excellent.
Good.
Amiel. Great.
It was helpful. And good luck to everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night. Thanks, Deepa. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Have a great night, Amiel.
Yeah, thanks, David. Bye-bye.